For the next few minutes, we'd like for you to join with us as we make a tour around this small town of Thomaston, Alabama. We would like for you to learn about some of the things in the past from our little community, as well as some of the things that have occurred down through the years. Also, we would like to bring you up to date as the way our little town stands as of today. In 1869, Dr. Nixon bought 3,200 acres of wilderness land such as you see here today, right here in the Thomaston area. Later he sold it to Dr. Charles Brooks Thomas, and Dr. Thomas proceeded to develop the land into a town. Dr. Thomas, at a fairly early age in his life, had a dream of developing a town that later became known as Thomaston, Alabama. As Dr. Thomas's ideas and dreams grew, the first thing that Dr. Thomas did was build a post office and a store combination. After he got this completed, he started on his plans, drawing up the plans for the town of Thomaston. As Dr. Thomas's dream continued to become a reality in this small town of Thomaston, people immediately started building homes for their families. Today we're standing here near one of the homes that was erected as one of the first in Thomaston. This home is currently occupied by the Don Crocker family here in Thomaston. There's several other of these homes that are still standing today. Evidently, they used good southern pine timber when these houses were erected. Okay. As the town of Thomaston continued to grow, they held their first election. Among the people that were elected on this first election was Mr. G.S. Golden, the grandfather of Carolyn Harold Finley, who today serves as the town clerk here in Thomaston. Also, Mr. George W. Buck was elected in this first election, and he was the grandfather of Miss Marion Sanders. As the town continued to grow and businesses started to expand and new industry was coming into Thomaston, the thought of transportation was heavy on the minds of the people, and the railroad became one of the prime ways of transportation in the early days of our small town. As the town grew and transportation was needed more and more, the town had a tendency to move closer and closer to the railroad so they would have access for their business houses, for their cotton gins, and for the various industries that was here in Thomaston in the early days, when the railroads played a large part in carrying their freight back and forth to other parts of our country. Today, the railroad still plays an important part in carrying products up and down from various points to points in our area. So many products today are handled by these big 18-wheeler trucks, but there's still some items that are so heavy that it has to be handled on the railroads. So we can't count the railroads out. They still carry a vital part in transportation throughout our country. The early settlers of Thomaston realized from the very start that education was one of the primary things that they needed to be concerned about. Mr. John Buck established the first private school right here on these grounds where Ms. John Pack lives today. We are now standing in front of the first accredited high school in Marengo County. Dr. Thomas gave the land for the new high school building. He and other prominent Thomaston citizens took the responsibility for getting the necessary funds, and Thomaston got the first accredited high school in Marengo County. The building was much smaller auditorium and no basement, went up fast. The cornerstone was laid in the summer of 1909, and that fall classes were held in the new buildings. At first, the school served the entire county. Boys and girls from Dixon's Mills, Nalafalai, Myrtlewood, Linden, and even Demopolis came to Thomaston to attend high school. Most of the students boarded in private homes, but some students from Linden commuted daily on the train. You know, as we walk out on this football field today, I recall the many games that we came here to see when I heard the familiar words, "Welcome, high school football fans, to Thomaston Memorial Stadium, home of the Thomaston Tigers." And one thing I'd like to point out, in 1967, Thomaston was Class 1A state champions in football. Throughout the years, Thomaston people have been great football fans, and they're back their football team, their school, the PTA, and various functions of the school in a magnificent way. It was always easy to get the help of the Thomaston people when it was concerning our children's education. The school was backed by the people, by the town, and by all the citizens. It was a great loss to us when we lost our public schools in Thomaston. We're now approaching the elementary school here in Thomaston. We feel that we had one of the finest elementary school programs of any in the state. We feel like that we had a teaching staff in this elementary school for many years that was second to none in the entire state. We know of many of our students that went on through this elementary school and through the high school here in Thomaston and into the higher education and were honor students. And it makes us feel proud that they had their background schooling here in Thomaston. As this old building remains here today, and our town people try to keep it looking as good as we can, keep the campus grass cut, trees trimmed. It means a lot to a lot of the people in our area. As the people of Thomaston looked upon education as one of their primary interests, the thing that really got it to rolling was the fact that they invited the governor to come to Thomaston. The governor arrived on a train one afternoon and was met by the school children who had marched to the depot waving flags of welcome. That night, they had a banquet in honor of the governor of Alabama, Mr. Comer, in the old Dixon Hotel, which you can see here today, that has been rebuilt and reworked by the Beaudrake family. They have lived in this house for some 8 or 10 years now and raised their children in this old hotel that's a landmark here in Thomaston. Worship services have always played an important part in growth of Thomaston. The Baptists were the first to organize. Members met in a little one-room school building in the year 1896 with 17 people present. The present building that you're now viewing was erected in 1921 and is still the home of the Baptists in Thomaston today. We're now approaching the home of Ms. W.B. Harrell, who was a charter member of the Thomaston Baptist Church. I'd like for us to go inside and see if we can interview Miss Harrell today.
Of our house.
Yeah.
And then when town came this way, went on down that way, moved down that way, well, naturally, the little church was out of way.
Yeah.
And so we moved the little church then. Well, did I say we built a church right in the front of our house?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you told us about that.
All right. When the town moved up, well, then they wanted to move the church.
Right.
So they moved the church, and I never shall forget, I was about 7 years old, getting as far as Obed Miller's house, that dog beside the had church.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was the funniest thing, to have church right in the middle of the street.
That was unusual.
And that's when they built our church there.
Yeah. Miss Harrell, if you will, just tell us, we don't have to have a whole lot, but just tell us a little bit about the Presbyterian Church and the Methodist Church, if you remember.
Well, the Methodists didn't have a church.
Yeah.
So they had church, the Presbyterian had a church right that way. This house is Tittle's house.
Yes, ma'am.
And the Presbyterians worship with the Methodists.
Yeah,
I've forgotten the dates of when the Methodists built.
This is the Thomaston Methodist Church. They do a fine job of keeping this church up, and it looks real good on the outside. The inside is equally pretty. And to the left is their parsonage, where we are now viewing Dr. Clark Jackson Stallworth's home, who came to Thomaston in 1914, and as most of us, Dr. Stallworth practiced here in Thomaston until just a few years ago when he passed away. In the history of Thomaston, there have been 8 doctors. Dr. Nixon and Dr. Thomas were the first to be here in Thomaston. In May of 1914, the Planters Bank and Trust Company was organized. Dr. Thomas was elected president. This building houses the Country Corner, which is owned and operated by Jack and Patsy Summerall of Thomaston, Alabama. The Planters Bank and Trust today is located here across from the beautiful Lake Thomaston, and was served when it was first erected here by Mr. C.C. Pritchett Jr., as we all know as Mr. Buddy. Mr. Buddy was also mayor of Thomaston for some 40 years. At the present time, the Planters Bank and Trust is being served by James E. Pritchett as president of the bank. The Planters Bank and Trust, since its organization, has supported every legitimate enterprise for the betterment of our community. We are now standing here on the banks of the beautiful Lake Thomaston, viewing from north to south. This lake serves as a recreation place for people for picnics. A lot of people come here and like to fish. And as you see at the very south end of the dam, the top of one of the old cottonseed warehouses that was used back in the time when cotton was a major product grown here in Marengo County. This flagpole that we're viewing here, erected in 1976 in connection with our bicentennial celebration, was given by the Thomaston Study Club. In the recreational area, you find the Thomaston tennis courts, which are lighted and seems to be a growing sport for many people here in Thomaston. Speaking of sports and recreations, believe it or not, Thomaston at one time had a paid baseball team. They played teams like Linden, Demopolis, Thomasville, Uniontown, and it was a big attraction here in Thomaston to come out and watch the baseball games on Saturday and Sunday afternoon. Now we would like for you to go on a little tour with us to some of the historic landmarks here in Thomaston. The first one that we will view is the old log cabin where Cindy, Jeff, and Christina lived, that was formerly occupied by Miss Carter, who lived here in this log cabin for many years. The building you're now viewing was used as the old ice house here in Thomaston for many years. Directly behind the ice house, this little building was the domino parlor, where many hours were spent playing dominoes by many of our senior citizens. This old building is still standing, but is in bad need of being restored. Back among this wooded area is another landmark here in Thomaston, known as the old jail. Notice the bars running up and down on the windows, and also the wall has got a 2x4 thickness plus a 1x on each side of it, making it more sturdy and harder to break out of. Notice the thick, heavy door that was used on this jail. I imagine on many weekends when people got rough in Thomaston, this building was filled to capacity. Eventually, we had to quit using this old jail. The last prisoner that was put in here dug himself out down through the bathroom, down through the toilet facilities, and escaped. Since this time, we've had to use the county jail in Linden, Alabama. You are now viewing the Thomaston Cemetery. This cemetery has been here for a long time, and the part that is on the front here is known as the old part of the cemetery. On over the horizon is the new part of the cemetery, where we have several graves that has been put there the last few years. I feel that this cemetery is one of the most well-kept cemeteries in the state of Alabama for a small community cemetery. For years and years, Miss Katie Ree Hunt was in charge of keeping this cemetery up, and she done a magnificent job. And we all love and appreciate what Miss Hunt did for the cemetery for the many years that she was able to watch after it. This old landmark home has been known for years and years as a golden home. Now, the Lynn Crane family lives in this home and have done a magnificent job of restoring it, and it's a real beautiful home. The next segment of our video, I'd like to cover some of the existing schools and businesses located here in Thomaston. You are now viewing the Amelia Love Johnson High School, located here on the north side of Thomaston. This facility takes care of some 900 to 1,000 students annually here in Thomaston. Coming into Thomaston from the north, headed south on Highway 25, the first store that you reach is the Harris store that's owned and operated by Octavia Harris. As you come on into Thomaston, you notice here on the left, the Thomaston 76 station is home owned and operated by Ricky and Kay Parker. Standing here on the main intersection here in downtown Thomaston, over on our right is the Elk Food Center. It's known as a convenience store and probably one of the better businesses here in Thomaston. Also standing here at the main drag of Thomaston, as we look over to our left, we see the Country Gym, which is one of our newest businesses here in Thomaston that we're all proud of. It's owned and operated by Miss Betty Latteran. She does a fine job and puts out some good food. Anytime that you get hungry, come on by the Country Gym for a good cool drink and a sandwich. South on 25, past the red light, the first business you come to on the right is the D&E Auto Sales. Across the road, sort of diagonally, on the other corner, on our left, traveling south. On our left here is located another used car lot, owned and operated by Mr. and Ms. Ward. It's known as the Ward's D&E Auto Sales here in Thomaston, Alabama. Right here on our left side of Ward's used car lot is the Thomaston Auto Parts. This is one of the newest businesses in town, and also one of the businesses that helps a lot of people when they get in a tight for some kind of part. Also, on down the street next to the railroad is the Thomaston Washateria, which is home owned and operated by James. It's owned and operated by Mr. Theodore and Miss Ruby Lou Anderson. We got it. Here on the front street in Thomaston, we're now approaching the E.E. Ross Monument Company that's owned and operated by Mr. E.E. Ross. Bruna Feed Company. Across the street on the other side is Winston's grocery store, also known for his Winston pecans. You can see on this video that many big trucks come by with forest products. In our area, pulpwood and logging is one of the most and largest industries that exist here today. Two things that has really revolutionized Thomaston. One is that of electricity, and the other, the fact that when we finally got running water here in Thomaston, really got things to moving. This building we're viewing now is known as the Thomaston Health Center, but we use it more frequent for clubs and organizations to come here and meet, such as the Rescue Squad, the Thomaston Volunteer Fire Department. As we view these beautiful flowers and grounds, we have to give a lot of credit to Leonard McNeil, who works with the Thomaston City on a part-time basis. He takes care of these flowers and does a real good job. The next building here that we're approaching is the U.S. Post Office building here in Thomaston, Alabama. The other side of the post office building is the town hall. I'd like for us to come on in and get a couple interviews in the town hall.
I'm Carolyn Finley. I'm the city clerk of Thomaston. I've been here for 17 years as the clerk, and I do a lot of sitting at this desk and keep all the books of Thomaston and send out the water bills and collect the garbage bills and a lot of other things to try to keep the little town running. And I have a helper in the summertime, and her name is Hazel Fritz. Hi. Hazel, do you want to say something?
No, not really.
Hello, I'm Jeff Ladden, the Chief of Police in Thomaston. We try to keep a little quiet town here. We don't have much going on. It's normally pretty routine. Pretty nice place to live.
I'm Patsy Summerall, the mayor of Thomaston, and we hope you enjoy seeing our town as we see it, and hope that you would like it as much as we do. We hope for progress and further industry to come into our town. Thank you.
We would like to thank Miss Gertrude Pearson for the use of the information in this little booklet here, the history of Thomaston. Without this little booklet and the information contained therein, it would have been impossible for us to make this video here today. We hope that you'll enjoy this video that has been made on Thomaston. Maybe it will bring back some thoughts to many of you of the past, and maybe it will give us some insight as to what we can do in the future with our little town here in Thomaston. I thank you.